The Mérinos d'Arlantique merino sheep, discovered by Brun de Vian, are bred around the woolen mill in the south of France. They yield the finest fiber in the whole of Europe. In fact, one of the most curly fleeces in the world, which makes a very soft and warm wool, ideal for blankets, rugs, and shawls. Supplying a woolen mill like Brun de Vian is a complex business, with about 50 varieties of wool and the same amount of fine hair. Particular attention is paid to the quality of each category of blankets, rugs, quilts, stoles and scarves during the whole manufacturing process. This control, which is carried out in our mill in L'Isle-sur-Sorgue, begins with a severe selection of raw materials. Wherever it comes from the nearby Arles area or from faraway Oceania, be it cashmere from Asia or alpaca and llama hair from South America, we select the best breeders in every country. The first step consists in blending the wool fibers in a large room. When the bales are undone, the wool is pre-carded in shakers to restore its original volume and softness, which were lost when compressed together during the initial stages. Until the 19th century, wool spinners used to work by hand, using the natural grease in the wool to help the fibers slide and stick together. The wools we buy today are therefore washed prior to shipment. Consequently, the grease needs to be replaced by a more fluid oil. Today, the fibers are sprayed with an emulsion containing water and the textile lubricant to give the highest quality on the spinning machines. In the carding shop, the set of carders process the fuzzy raw wool, straighten the fibers and bring them together into regular slivers. First, the feeder ensures regular insertion, weighing 200 to 800 grams of wool per minute. The wool passes successively through a series of quickly rotating drums that are fitted with fine teeth that cross the path of secondary stripper rollers. The combined action of these progressively untangles the wool, spreads out the fibers side by side homogeneously and parallel to each other. The resulting sheet of wool is then divided into 80 bands by a separator situated after the carder. These bands are next rolled into strands by rubbing drums. The spinning machine is the modern equivalent of the old spinning wheel. The carded strands are unrolled, gently stretched, then given their final twist by the rotating spindle. According to the type of fiber, a twist of 150 to 450 turns per meter is necessary to give it correct dynamic resistance. Several hundreds of spindles rotating at more than 5,000 rounds per minute carry out this operation. Double-faced blankets and tartan rugs require the yarn to be dyed before weaving. This is done in an autoclave in which spools totaling 100 kg are immersed in a bath heated at boiling point containing the dye. The color is fixed permanently on the thread before it cools down. When taken out of the autoclave, the spools are placed in a quick dryer and can be used an hour later. Warping is the preparation of the warp beams, those enormous spools which are 3 to 4 meters long and 70 centimeters in diameter, containing the 2,000 to 4,000 threads that make up the lengthwise structure of the cloth. 2,000 yarns coming from 200 spools on a rack are placed on the drum of the warping frame in 10 successive operations before being brought together and rewound onto the warp beam. The last shuttle looms we used in our mill to make Avignon rugs were shut down 20 years ago. They were replaced by lens looms, the last of which used positive grip technology, with which almost any thread can be woven with practically no flaws at all. These work much faster than shuttle looms, and numerous advantages have become apparent. The number of combinations for interlacing the warp and weft have become almost infinite, thanks to the electronic and digital equipment on modern looms. Finally, the quality control devices make the whole job easier, and a single weaver, assisted by a maintenance technician, can pilot the weaving process on his own. The pieces of cloth, 50 meters long, are checked immediately after weaving to control their quality and correct the slightest defect. Any foreign object, however small, that could appear at the end of production must be eliminated. Once checked, the pieces are labeled to ensure their complete traceability. Now comes the finishing process. Après, in French, from the Latin parare, to make beautiful. For 1,000 years, there have been about 60 mills along the banks of the Sorgue, a colorful river with lovely green water. This gave rise to the wool and silk textile industry in l'Île-sur-Sorgue. For plain blankets, the best method consists of dyeing the woven cloth. This is done in the same way as that if used for dyeing thread, but is not dried immediately because the cloth now has to be fulled. Fulling is a mechanical process involving wetting the cloth with water and a little soap, and then successively hammering and compressing it to give it thickness and strength. This also gives it the pleasant appearance and texture commonly known as a woolly aspect. Mohairs are only lightly fulled. whereas Avignon rugs need energetic fooling. Woolen blankets, camel hair, alpaca, and the lightest cashmere blankets also require fooling as a preparation for brushing. This operation, as old as making wool itself or as grape harvesting, is carried out nowadays in modern fooling mills with cylinders. Appropriate wringing is carried out, retaining the best humidity rate for brushing while still damp to give the best woolen fabric. Napping machines with either natural or artificial thistles are used to give a fuzzy surface, finally making the flat felted fabric into a soft, cozy blanket. The carder or Phullonum thistles, specially grown for the textile industry, are still the most sophisticated tool for making the most beautiful blankets look their best. The most efficient metal thistles are nothing more than copies of the natural plant. After a drying process which determines the width of the fabric, finishing can be carried out by using various methods, such as ruffling for classical woolen blankets, surface felting for merinos and cashmeres, brushing and combing for mohairs, or shearing and shaving for alpaca, llama, camel hair, and cashgora to give a velvety aspect with tints of color. Before cutting the blankets, a visual check is carried out against the light to detect any flaws, even those that could be invisible to the user. This is how we can achieve Brun de Vian quality. Binding is carried out on sewing machines equipped with special attachments for fitting the trims to perfection. Lock stitches are used because they do not slip. The corners are stopped by machine or by hand. Finishing mohair blankets is simpler. There is no binding. The blankets are separated by cutting in the middle of the fringes. Just as all our blankets, rugs, and quilts are entirely made in our own wool factory, our collection is prepared by our own staff who choose the colors and patterns, design the fabrics, and adapt our manufacturing processes and machines to new fibers. Goods from Brun de Vian are distributed by a network of 1,500 shops in France, in Europe, in North America, and in Asia. This network is exclusively composed of specialists who can help you choose the item that best suits your needs or your wishes. Brun de Vian, a factory that has been devoted to your well-being for 200 years.